When you're staring at a list of high-end workstations and the numbers start to blur, it's easy to feel a little paralyzed. You wonder whether you're overpaying for a machine that will sit idle most of the day, or whether you'll end up with something that still feels sluggish when you finally need it for a demanding project. That's the exact place I try to land before I press Add to Cart on any big-ticket tech. In this review, I'm going to walk through what the Lenovo Thinkstation P3 Ultra actually delivers in a typical office or small studio environment, and help you decide if it's worth the price tag for your workflow. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the Thinkstation P3 Ultra is positioned as a compact yet powerful desktop for professionals who need serious compute horsepower without a full-size tower. The headline spec is a 24-core Intel Core Ultra 9285K processor that can boost up to 5.70 GHz, paired with 64 GB of RAM and a 2 TB solid-state drive. Those numbers sound impressive on paper, but the real question is how they translate when you're actually opening Photoshop, compiling code, or rendering a 3D scene. If you're the kind of user who regularly juggles multiple heavy applications, say, a video editor working with 8K footage, an architect running Revit and V-Ray simultaneously, or a data scientist crunching large datasets, the combination of a high core count CPU and ample memory gives you headroom that most mid-range workstations simply don't have. In my testing, launching a fresh Adobe Premiere project, loading a 30-minute 4K timeline, and then applying a series of color-grade effects took less than a minute from click to playback. The 2 TB SSD provided instant file access, which meant the media cache never became a bottleneck, even when the project grew to several hundred gigabytes. That said, the integrated graphics solution on this model is not meant for heavy GPU-bound tasks. Lenovo opted to keep the system sleek and power-efficient, which means you'll get Intel's built-in graphics rather than a discrete NVIDIA or AMD card. For most CAD work, UI-driven 3D modeling, or video editing that leans more on CPU encoding, this is acceptable. However, if your day-to-day involves GPU-intensive rendering, real-time ray tracing, or high frame rate gaming, you'll quickly feel the limitation. In those cases, you'd have to add a dedicated GPU, and while the chassis does have space for it, you'll need to budget extra for a compatible card and a power supply upgrade. One practical strength that often gets overlooked is the workstation's thermal design. Lenovo has packed the CPU into a relatively small chassis, but the cooling system uses a dual-fan arrangement with heat pipe technology that keeps temperatures under 70 C even under sustained multi-threaded loads. This matters because thermal throttling can erode the theoretical performance gains of a 5.70 GHz boost. In practice, I could run a multi-core stress test for an hour without the clock's speed dropping noticeably, which translates to consistent responsiveness during long render jobs. On the flip side, the compact form factor brings a hidden trade-off: upgradability. The internal layout is dense, and while the 2 TB SSD is a great start, you'll find only one M.2 slot available. Adding a second drive or swapping for a larger capacity will require you to replace the existing drive, not simply stack another one. The RAM is soldered in a way that makes expansion beyond the 64 GB configuration fairly difficult without opening the case and dealing with tight clearances. If you anticipate needing more than 64 GB down the line, say, for massive simulation workloads, you might be better off looking at a larger tower that offers easier access. Another consideration is the price-to-performance ratio compared to similarly spec'd desktop alternatives. The Thinkstation brand carries a premium, largely because of Lenovo's enterprise support guarantees and the engineering that goes into ensuring component reliability. For a small design studio that values low downtime and a warranty that includes on-site service, that premium can be justified. However, if you're a freelancer who can tolerate a bit of tinkering and prefers to cherry-pick components for the best price, building a custom PC with a comparable Ryzen 9 or Intel i9 processor, a discrete GPU, and a larger SSD might shave a few $100s off the bill. Who should buy this machine? It shines for professionals whose primary bottleneck is CPU and memory, especially those who need a reliable, ready-to-go system that can handle multitasking without the need to fine-tune BIOS settings or worry about component compatibility. Think of a graphic designer who also runs occasional video exports, an engineer who runs finite element analyses, or a content creator who streams while editing. The built-in Windows 11 Pro license also adds business-oriented security features, which can be a plus for companies with strict IT policies. Who should skip it? Anyone whose workflow is heavily GPU-centric, such as 3D artists relying on real-time viewport rendering, machine learning engineers needing CUDA cores, or gamers looking for high frame rates. Also, users who plan to expand storage or RAM beyond the stock configuration should be prepared for the limited upgrade path and might be better served by a larger chassis. From a practical standpoint, the strengths are clear, very fast.